Hey everyone, I am Terry Seaton, your host, and this is On His Guard Podcast, episode 5, Joy. So what we're going to talk about today. So I hope this podcast will inspire you, motivate you, move you to think deeper and better in everything that you do each and every day of your life. So let's get started. Remember, turn that volume up, make sure those headphones are on. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome into the show. Hope everyone out there is doing well. Hope you guys are having a good spring last week. So I decided to take off an episode or at least for a week. I wanted to talk about joy, and I wanted to study about it a little bit more. I wanted to think about it a little bit more and pray on it a little bit more. Joy's a tricky thing, you know. I'm going to break this down, and this is how I'm going to teach you guys and how to look at this. Joy, J-O-Y, justify or yield. Two different ways to look at your joy. You know, my last episode, I talked about and hit on briefly how my joy was being sucked away, and I allowed things to take it away from me. And I started thinking about this and started praying on it and started asking myself, you know, why is this happening? What is going on? How am I looking at joy versus what I looked at joy before in my life? So then I decided to do a deep dive into it, and more than I ever have in the past. And I wanted to teach everyone and give everyone insight on kind of the way that I look at it and the way that I see joy in this world, because we, as all of you know, we have crazy things going on all the time. I always kind of joke with people and say we live in the upside down world right now. Little Stranger Things there for all you Stranger Things fans out there. Not as bad as what the show is, though, from a standpoint of the world. But, however, you know, my kids are highly involved in things. My daughter and my youngest son and my oldest son is a junior in high school. He's going away soon to the military. He's going to go in the Army branch. And I started thinking about the fact that I don't have much time left with him to spend with him. And then my youngest son plays travel baseball, and his frustrations and hurt, I started to see and feel my own joy being stolen for my own accord. So when I say justify or yield these joys in your life, you have to be very careful. Joy that you should yield to is joy that is not created A, by yourself, or B, from God. Other joys that you fulfill your life with are not substantial. They are not long-lasting. And if you put too much into that joy, you're going to slowly see things happen in your life that are rough. You're gonna walk through valleys more than you would if you paid attention to the joy that you're feeding from. This is why I classify joy as being two different types. I classify a type of joy of being a justified joy and yielding to a joy. And I realized I needed to yield to the joys that I can't control. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult as a human being when you're ingrained with people, when you care about people, when you have empathy for people. It's hard to separate yourself and realize that you need to yield to some of the joy that you're feeding off of from others. For instance, a prime example would be if you're a big sports fan, whatever your favorite team is, professional sports, let's say, even college, let's say. I have actually reserved myself back from watching sports as much as I did in the past, because years ago I found myself being too connected to something that I couldn't control, that I wasn't even a part of the team, and I started allowing it to affect my thinking and my emotions, and I allowed that to bleed out into things I was doing in my life. So I decided to pull back and get away from that. I spoke in my last show about how I took roughly an 8-month absence from Facebook and social media. And the reason I did that is because I found other things that I'm reading sucking joy from my life, making me feel anxious or upset or disappointed or frustrated, or hurting for others, feeling empathy for others. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have joy that is connected to another person. However, you need to yield that joy and understand that you can't control what is going on in their life or what they are doing. So you have to yield to that joy. The joy that you're going to get, that you want to justify joy, is the joy that is your day-to-day life on something you can control. You like to work out, you like to run, you like to watch TV, you like to read books, you like to study, you like to learn, you like to build knowledge. Those are joys that you can control. Those are joys that give you satisfaction in your life. And those are joys that you can take to the highest of the mountain and the lowest of the mountain. But the other joy that we all see, we're joyful for people. Like I tell people constantly, I've said it on this show multiple times already, and the short period of time that I've been doing it, is that, I want people to be successful. And I want to celebrate their joy in their success. But I also understand and know that I can't control that. All I can do is help guide you, tell you, give you information, give you data, give you deep dive mindset situations in order for you to understand that your joy comes from certain things. Now, we can go from a biblical side point and say, well, I'm a Christian and I'm a believer in Jesus Christ and I pray all the time and none of my prayers come to fruition. Flourition? Flourition. I don't know. Messed up on that word maybe. Possibly. But we'll leave it in. Anyway. But so if you're praying and you're like, man, I've been praying about this forever and it's not happening. The funny thing about prayers is, God is extremely patient and we are not. I am not a very patient person. I will tend to allow joy to be sucked out of my life because I am impatient and I don't take my time to adjust or to think in that manner. And I believe everyone out there that's listening and everyone out there that you will encounter or have conversations with have this same situation all the time. But we have to be very careful because we can allow ourselves to be extremely depressed by allowing joy from someone else or something else that is not a means of ourselves to bring us down. And when I teach this or say this on this show, and when I say biblically or just of this world, it is both. It is both. You can not believe in God or not believe anything, but if you continuously put your joy, if you're feeding yourself with joy that is coming from others, you're still going to be feeling down and depressed and upset. If you're not finding a way to fix that within yourself, within your own mind, you're going to constantly be anxious about things or impatient about things or upset about things. And so that's why really I wanted to talk about this today. Really, it got me thinking. Recently, my youngest son plays travel baseball, and he works really hard, and I could see the frustration on him at certain things that were happening in games and in his situation. And I allowed his frustration to steal joy away from me. And my wife was asking me, what is wrong? What's going on? And I just openly admitted, I said, man, I'm allowing his frustration to suck joy out of me just being a fan and watching. And that's what I want to do. I just want to be a fan and watch. I don't want to allow his frustration to steal joy from me. I just have to keep fighting and going forward and accepting joy where it is. So I actually had a talk with him about certain things and let him know that his frustration and his angst during things can project. And if it's projecting on me, it's also projecting on his teammates, which all of you know, anyone that has any kind of semblance of a job and works with other people and is around other people, the things that they do around you can suck joy out of you. The way that they speak, the way that they act, the way that they do things, it will suck joy out of you. Last year, I actually allowed the joy of coaching football to be sucked out of me towards the end of the season because I allowed something that I had no control over in reading of a playoff set of how teams were being set, and I didn't agree with it, and I allowed myself to get frustrated enough to reaching out to somebody in all the wrong ways, and that was wrong of me, and I apologized to that person because I didn't yield to the joy, and it wasn't justified. There was no justified joy in me. I should have stepped back, reassess the situation, and understand I didn't have control of it. Now that's easier said than done right here. This is something you're going to have to do day in and day out all the time. You're going to have to diagnose what this joy is for yourself. You have joy just sitting outside. Awesome. But if someone comes into your presence outside, does your joy get sucked out of you because you just wanted to be alone? Therefore, you need to yield to the situation and understand that, okay, they're not stealing my joy. Maybe they need help. Maybe they just need conversation. Maybe they need you to help guide them for their joy, and then teach them how they can yield to the joy that you're allowing them to feed off of, because it's not their joy to have. It's your joy to have, right? You talk to people who run or who exercise. I know a ton of people that do this regularly, and they do it out of joy. People always joke and like, why would you want to do that just as joyful? But they find joy in that. They find perseverance within themselves. And that's an important aspect that everyone out there must have. You have to have this ability to have perseverance over situations in your life, and that's where your joy is going to come from. You don't want sadness. No one wants to be sad. No one wants to be angry. It's frustrating to feel that way, and it really brings you down, and it can bleed out into everybody around you. So I wanted to keep this, pretty straightforward and pretty easy to understand what I'm speaking of. And it just, the way I wanted to break it down was I looked at JOY as the word joy, and I was like, oh, justify or yield. And so that's what I ended up, that's why I'm here now. And I'm trying to teach everybody out there that's listening that sometimes you need to yield to something, even if it's extremely exciting, even if you get, because you can't control it. So what if there is a situation that you can't control and you're just feeding off of it, and maybe the weather becomes bad and you can't go on that trip now, or plans fall through, or something gets canceled and you can't do it. And now all that joy is sucked away. Now, I'm not telling you to not have joy in things. What I'm telling you is that you need to yield to certain joys and take in the joys that you can control. That's ideally, that's probably a day-to-day operation for everybody. I talked about having an accountability mirror. Some people find joy in speaking to themselves in a mirror to bring confidence up or build their self-esteem up or whatever have you. Talking to themselves before they're about to do a big project or maybe have a presentation. I will tend to have a dialogue with myself before I'm doing this podcast, because I want to make sure that the words that I'm speaking are clearly coming from my heart and not from any kind of other people's joy or other situations that I cannot control. And I do not want to give that to all my friends that listen to this show, which that's all of you, every person, every ear that's here. I want them to know that I'm rooting for them, as I've said before on this show. And I want you to understand that this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to coach people into having a better, stronger mindset. And I think joy is a huge key in that. Find joy in what you can control and stay the course with that and think about that. Don't hesitate. Don't keep yourself on the back burner. Don't be afraid. Don't allow fear to be the one that's directing you to get your joy. Maybe you're fearful and you're upset or you're angry and you're looking for something to fill that void, and you're looking for other types of joy that is a small part that doesn't last. It has no substance. That would be joy of, hey, forget it. I'm going to go out and drink a bunch of alcohol, or I'm going to go out and do a bunch of stupid things. That joy is going to be very short-lived. And then everything's going to come back. There's a million people out there that use those crutches to fulfill joy in their life, instead of really digging deep down into why their joy isn't there, or where they're placing their thoughts into to have the joy that they're having in their life. Every one of us, every one of you that are listening right now has your own storms going on inside. They're not for anybody else to see. Maybe you want to share them at times with people that you greatly care about, or that you trust, or that you love. Maybe it's just between you and God and you're talking about it. And that is something that we all go through. And it's hard. It stinks that we have to go through this. But as a human being, with our brains and our minds being developed and created the way that they are, these are the circumstances that we are with. But as I will say, if you're a believer and you trust in God and you pray a lot, or you try to pray, or you try to have a conversation eventually with God, eventually that stuff is going to slowly fade away, and you're going to start finding joy in the right things, joy in the little things, joy in looking at amazing art, or, outdoors, or whatever, or watching a game. For instance, I will watch a sport game, and whether I'm, a big fan of that team or whatever, I look for the ability of the person performing the duties at hand, and seeing the joy on their face, and seeing and knowing that they've worked really hard. It's like anyone else that ever does anything, and someone says, well, I'm better than that person. Well, I'm better than that person. Well, everything in our life is, if you're going to compare yourself with someone, is a 50-50, right? 50% you, 50% the other person. So really, when you get down to it, no one is actually better than anybody on this planet, no matter who they are, where they come from, no matter what prestige they have, no matter what title they've been given. No one on this planet is better than anyone. Any living human being on this planet is no better than anybody. But we decide to take joy in saying that. See, there's another way to take joy. There's another way to twist joy and take joy away from somebody else, because you think someone's better than someone because they have a title, or they have something that says that they are better. Well, that's one perspective. That isn't the entire perspective of everyone's thinking. And we find ourselves in this constant day-to-day routine to where you will compare yourselves to others, and your joy will be stolen from you because you're comparing yourself. If you do this a lot, I highly recommend you to start journaling your day-to-days, the good and the bad, and to see where these little things are stealing joy from you, especially if you're comparing yourself with others. And obviously, if you're younger, if you're an athlete, it's very difficult, because you do tend to do it. And it's really not always because of who you're comparing yourself to. A lot of it is fed from those around you. from those who are in your life, from coaches, from family members, from siblings, from other teammates. Unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. If anyone ever comes and hears me coach a team, you will hear completely different from that. It's not something that I am big on about comparing. I tell my athletes all the time that if you're comparing yourself to others, then you're comparing yourself to lose. You're not comparing yourself to succeed because you're not winning in yourself. You're trying to win to show others, and you've already lost if you're doing that. Your joy in your entire life and everything that you're doing at that moment in time, it will be gone. It's like having a really good job and getting that raise or whatever. If you keep comparing yourself with others instead of working really hard and grinding and pushing yourself and taking the uncomfortable route and doing things and facing fears and overcoming them for yourself, then you're going to keep failing if you're not doing that. You're going to never have joy, never the right type of joy that you need day to day, the joy that you deserve, the joy that God has given us. We wake up every day and we breathe air. We have breath. It's joyful. That should be very joyful to everybody, because the second you don't have that air to breathe is when you're going to finally realize it. So don't wait until that time happens. Realize it now in everything that you're doing, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. When you change your mindset to this way, to thinking of justified joy and yielding joy, you will find people around you just more open. They will want to be around you. You will be like a magnet. And maybe you don't want that. Maybe you're like, I don't want to be around people. I don't want to talk to people. I just like to listen to people talk on podcasts, which is great. It's completely fine. I would encourage you to try to break out of that shell a little bit and try to grow yourself and do deep dives on knowledge and ability and things in that nature. But I understand it because, look, I grew up half my life being an introvert, and I was too afraid to talk to people. I wouldn't raise my hand when I was younger. I was scared. I felt stupid. I felt like I was never smart enough. And when I look back on that joy was stolen from me. I allowed other people's reactions and other people's perception of me to steal my own joy away. It took me a long time. I was very angry, and I was very rambunctious when I would get angry and whatnot as I grew up, and a lot of that had to do with because I allowed other people to steal my joy from me and not build joy for myself until I started understanding and realizing and studying that I need to look at this stuff differently. And to be honest with everybody out there, I mean, this really did change for me when I was extremely young. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior, and to be honest, I didn't believe it when it first happened. I didn't really understand it. I went to church camp, asked many, many different times to get saved because I still didn't understand what the process was, and I didn't really understand what it meant. That took a lot of years of my life to really understand and feel it and understand who Jesus was. And so then when I did that, I started having those conversations with God, and I started talking to God about joy and about, how things work in this world. And yeah, I didn't get, every answer all the time, but I did find, through scripture and through listening to people and praying, I did find good connections, and I found a good connection and good conversations with people that led me in the right direction to what I was actually looking for. They didn't dictate to me. They didn't preach at me. They told me to look at this or read this or do this or do that. And that's what I want to encourage to you out there. If you're very sad or you're very upset, or if someone's in your life and all you feel is that they're pulling joy from you all the time, then yield yourself back to being involved in their life, because maybe you need to not be a part of their life because they're sucking joy from you. Or you can be honest with them, or you can find another way to communicate with them, that individual, to where you can justify the joy that you're receiving. And the interesting part is, a lot of you listening right now have probably heard, kill them with kindness. And it's a fact, you know, if you feel that people are sucking joy from you, or if you're around an individual and you feel like they only suck joy out of you and they don't bring anything to you and they like sucking life out of you, which is your joy, you know, maybe you need to eliminate them from your life. Now, as I said before, I do believe that every person comes into your life for a reason. I believe it's either good or bad. And the way that I look at it is, if it's a bad situation, then maybe it needed to teach me about something. But I look at everyone that's ever came into my life, as I've said on an earlier show, that they've deposited something in my life. When they passed by, whether it was a handshake, whether it was a hello, whether it was a first time meet and greet, whatever have you, it was they deposited something in my life. So I try to diagnose that. Yes, journaling helps do that, because I can journal of what that conversation was, what I got from it, how they looked at it. We tend to look at projects as a joy suck. Well, that really comes down to you being determined to get something done. Let's say a project is, I want to lose 30 pounds in the next year. Well, then you're going to have to go uncomfortable, accept uncomfortable, do it, working out, eating right, writing down things, making sacrifices. But at the end of that road, if you hit that goal or you have a close encounter with that goal, you're going to understand that joy, that feeling, you're going to understand it inside of you, and you're going to go, wow, this is the joy that I'm talking about. This is the joy that I want. This is the joy because you accomplish something. Everyone on this planet feels good when they accomplish something. But I think as a society, we have allowed the little accomplishments to void out anything great. For instance, when I was talking to my youngest son about playing baseball, little things. I coach little things. You do the little things right, the rest of the stuff's going to take care of itself. Why? Because you build a great foundation. Therefore, your joy can stay high because the foundation has been built. It's solid. You know, my house is built on solid ground, not on sand. I build my mental foundation on solid ground, not on sand. Sand's going to sink. Solid, ground is going to stay tough, rigid, rough. It's going to hold up things. And so many people want to, as I said before, they want the top of the mountain. They want the view. They want all the good stuff at the top, but they don't want to climb the mountain to get there. They want to stay at the mid-level and complain about the people that get up there and try to suck their joy out. Now, the people that climb to the top of the mountain, they know where their joy comes from. They don't have they know the difference between justify and yielding of joy, and that's why they're at the top. That's why people that are very successful, they know how to get that. Now, not everybody. Sometimes there are people that at the top that they didn't do a lot of right things to get there, or they had a lot of things handed to them. But eventually in their life, that's going to come back, and they're going to find out and figure out why. Why are certain things happening? But don't let anyone fool you. Everyone that you ever visually see, look at, they all have some kind of joy struggle in their life. So, this whole episode was truly about joy. Justify joy or yield joy? Those are the questions that you're going to have to ask yourself. That is something that you're going to have to figure out on yourself day to day. Oh, my wife is bringing me some questions here. 4 questions. Finding joy. I had no idea she was going to do this during the show, so we're just going to have at it. Let me open this. Hopefully I can read her writing. We have had requests. We have actually had several requests to bring back the questions. People like that. My wife puts me on the spot, and I have to shoot from the hip on this. So let's see here. She wrote 4 questions here. Oh, we often try to find joy in things or activities, from hobbies to physical exercise, but all fall short eventually. We need something deeper, a sense of meaning and purpose. How can we find a sense of meaning and purpose in the everyday? And how does this bring joy? So I think I touched on this a little bit. We do try to fill our lives with hobbies, distractions. I put them as distractions all the time. What are you going to distract yourself with in order to fill a joy and fill a deeper sense of something in your life? But we do fall short. Now, I'm going to encourage people out there to go get a relationship with God, and you're going to see that joy change. You're going to see yourself change in a way that you never expected that you would change, and I say, because if some of you don't have that connection with God, then you don't know. So I encourage you to do so. And you know what? I'm not here to tell you that you're right or wrong. I'm here to encourage you to go find a local church, go find someone, or go find someone that, believes, and see if they can give you some details or help. Go Google and research and read and try to find your own answers. I think that's one of the biggest things. And then you need to find yourself a good church to where they're not breathing hellfire and brimstone down your throat, that they're actually accepting you for who you are. Our motto at our church, and I go to a mega church, it is, we reach people far from God. That's the thing. Our pastor is amazing. I mean, he speaks clear. He doesn't sugarcoat things, but he doesn't make anybody feel out of place. I mean, we show up. I've wore sweats before. Let's be quite honest. I wear a hat a lot. And that's okay. And there's, a couple thousand people there with multiple services. But let's see. I think I did answer this. We often try to find joy in things or activities, from hobbies to physical exercise, but all fall short eventually. Yeah. To circle back to this, I like when my wife wrote this here. How can we find a sense of meaning and purpose in the everyday? So the meaning and purpose, I believe, in every day is what I spoke about. You need to stop relying on others to fulfill your joy, and you need to justify joy in your life and yield to the joy that you can't control. And I think that's going to bring joy to your life on a regular basis when you begin to do this, when you start to think about this, when you look at something the next time you watch a TV show and you're upset about it, or you watch a sports game and you're upset at the outcome, or someone says something, you're really upset about it and it really bothers you. Well, yield to it. Yield to what you're feeling and figure out what joy you can find out, or how can you use it for yourself to bring joy to yourself, because what they're doing or what's happening outside of what your control is, therefore you have no joy. Let's go to question 2. How does living our lives with God in view... Hold on. My wife has amazing handwriting here. How does living our lives with God in view? I think this says view. With God in view, help us to further... I wasn't an English major, folks. I'm an engineer. So clearly I can't read either. Everyone out there can get a good laugh out of that, I hope. How does living our lives with God in view help us to further find meaning, purpose, and ultimately a joy that can't be shaken? Now, if I go down this deep hole, or this deep hole, like I said just a little bit ago, for those who believe, I encourage you to lean in deeper. I encourage you to have conversation or a constant dialogue with God all the time. Now, I know that sounds crazy. Some people are like, you're nuts. Like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Well, let me give you an example. I talk to God a lot in my head. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But I do know one thing. It helps me out in my day-to-day life, in my activities. I pray before I have a conversation with somebody, or I might pray driving, or I might pray in my head, or that's not even called a prayer. Because honestly, when I'm talking to God, I'm not just spitting out scripture or anything because I'm not versed in that stuff. But what I am versed in is opening my mouth or in my own head and having a conversation with God about something. And call me odd, weird, which I am very much that person. But I think your joy will still be shaken even when you have a relationship with God. I'm not going to lie to anybody. It is extremely difficult. It is extremely hard because of the world we live in. Also, I would say, is your joy coming from the world in this question, or is your joy coming from God? Are you pushing yourself to be closer to God, or are you pushing yourself further away? Because the closer you are to God, you will start finding your purpose and you start finding your joy within your purpose. For instance, I'm openly and admittingly with this podcast finding my joy in my relationship with God that I want to and believe that He has bestowed upon me at a young age of coaching, teaching, leadership, helping people, showing them that there's more to this world than just what we see in our day-to-day lives and when we're looking around. So yeah, how does your living our lives with God in view help us to further find meaning, purpose, and ultimately a joy that can't be shaken? Have a conversation with God. Hit me up if you have any questions about that, because I can lead you to the right people, to the right things, including myself. As I've said on shows before, if you're ever interested in finding out anything more about that, I'm not a pastor, but I am a leader, and I am someone that will show you what you can do and how you can do it and how your life can be better in it. My wife wrote 4 questions. Okay. Why is joy different from happiness, and how do we protect our joy? Ooh, this is a good one, because happiness and joy, distinguish the difference. Joy is something that can be forever. I have the joy, for instance, talk about being a believer and whatever. I have daily joy in my heart knowing that I'm going to heaven, or believing that I'm going to heaven when I die. I believe that there's more for me past this earth. I believe that there's another life after this. I truly believe that. I believe that with everything I have, there's no one that's ever going to be able to convince me differently that I'm not going to heaven, that it doesn't exist. I've told people before, people don't like this statement, but I'd rather spend my entire life believing in Jesus Christ, that He is the Savior of everyone on this planet, and that heaven exists, and that I can only go to heaven by His way, by believing in Him. And I'd rather spend my entire life believing that and treating people the right way, treating people as good as I possibly can, try to show empathy, love, happiness to them, kindness to them, and to die and find out that was all for nothing, than to spend my entire life not doing that, being mean, being disgruntled, being off-putting, being disruptive to this world, and then die and find out that Jesus and God and all that's real. That's really a real statement. That's really a real hardcore look at things when I think about it, and I think about why is joy different from happiness? Because that's the joy. Happiness is a feeling. Joy is a statement within you. Happiness comes and goes. I'm happy because I got a good grade on my test. I'm happy because I went out and got kudos. My son's happy because he won a game. I'm happy because my team won the game. I'm happy because I got a raise at work. That's going to be short-lived, because you're going to then be thrust back into life every single day. You're going to wake up, breathe air, lungs, filling, all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to go, oh, well, I'm not happy. Well, you got to lock your joy down. You got to protect your joy. And by protecting your joy is, like I said, justify it and yield to that only gives you false joy. Be careful. Be smart. Make good decisions. Finally, these are all big questions, but can you leave us with some small habits or mindsets that can help bring a daily awareness that joy is within reach? Now, I love my wife very much so. And I don't want to be a horse here, but I think I did that. I think I gave you some good habits, some small habits. Stop. Slow yourself down. Slow your mind down. Stop racing. Stop allowing yourself to race mentally through things. Look at the complete picture. Observe everything. We as humans, we sell ourselves short constantly. We're in our own heads. We steal our own joy by speaking negatively to ourselves. Don't do that. Stop doing that. When bad things happen, good. Then find something joyful out of the bad thing, so therefore you can learn and grow and build yourself up. This world's hard, and your joy can be stolen from you constantly if you allow it. But I believe everyone out there is better than that. I don't believe they're getting enough confidence or enough people speaking into them. I don't think there's enough people speaking life into them to tell them that they are better than what the world's telling them. So I'll leave you with this. Don't put limits on your life. Don't put limits on anything that you're going to do. Don't allow other people to tell you you cannot or that you can do something. Find it within your heart, have a conversation with God, and go for it. Build yourself up. Tell yourself daily, I am good at this. I will succeed. I will be great. I will accomplish this. I will conquer whatever's in front of me. Those are the type of things you got to speak. Those are the type of things you got to talk about. Those will relay yourself to great joy, as well as bleeding out joy to others, and they will see it. They will see the kindness and the niceness and the empathy in your heart and in your mannerisms, in your facial expressions, and everything that you do in the way that you talk. So to you, my friends, please, joy, justify or yield. Thank you. I love all you guys. Constantly praying for all you guys. I hope each and every one of you guys are having a great life. I hope each and every one of you are leading, showing people that you can be better, not only for yourself, but for all those around you. Make a difference. Do something kind for somebody. Make a difference for them. Until next week, I'll see you.